Today, we're going to talk about how to leverage a funnel model in order to manage our end-to-end lead processes. There's been a lot of talk lately about the new SirusDecisions funnel, so let's deep dive into it and see what benefit we can get out of it, or any funnel model for that matter. So for those that haven't actually adopted any sort of lead funnel, this is typically what's happening. Marketing thinks they're doing a brilliant job of serving up good quality leads, and of course, sales thinks the leads basically stink. So this is why, instead of just a lot of finger pointing and a lot of blame and a lot of table discussions resulting in, walking away, we want to adopt some sort of formalized funnel model. Why? Because it gives us an actionable approach to fixing lead quality. It starts making the different parties accountable. Now, if we adopt one of the more popular funnel models, we also get to benchmark ourselves against your peers and your competitors. And in the case of SirusDecisions, the new funnel model, we also get to leverage the current trends in lead management that are happening. So, here's the old SirusDecisions funnel. You probably remember it, or maybe even you use it. Here's our suspect stage. These are targeted lists pulled from databases, purchase lists, rented lists, trade shows, webinars, etc. At the point they raise their hand, they're called an inquiry. And it's at that moment that we throw them into a marketing qualified lead stage. This is where all of the lead scoring and all of the lead nurturing happens. At some point, the lead bubbles to the surface and is deemed ready for sales. And at that point, they're thrown over the fence to sales, where hopefully sales accepts it, they qualify it, they create an opportunity, and at the end of the day, we get a closed-won customer out of the deal. So that was the old model. Let's take a look at the new model. At first glance, it looks very similar. We still have basically the same stages, but it's been expanded. Here we have outbound inquiries, the normal email click-throughs, all the campaigns marketing is doing, we're tracking inquiries from those. At that point that they raise their hand, we typically add them to a scoring program, and then if they're scored high enough, they become what's now called an automated qualified lead. This assumes that you actually have a marketing automation tool in place. In addition, they've also added inbound inquiries, obviously web visits, pay-per-click, web form submits, those types of activities, but the flow is still the same. They go through a lead scoring program, and hopefully at the end of the day, they get to become automated qualified leads. From there, they are typically sent to a sales accepted status, right? They're sent over the fence to sales, who then qualifies it, and then hopefully at the end of the day, we get a closed one. Now, there's been a couple additions to this, and that is the insertion of a teleprospecting team. So I know in my travels I see a lot of large enterprise clients that have telemarketers. In fact, it's often the case that the telemarketing team was doing some sort of lead qualification prior to adopting a marketing automation tool. So for those clients, this is a perfect fit, and it answers the question, well, now what the heck do I do with our telemarketing team? In this case, teleprospecting actually takes the automated qualified leads and accepts them. Once that happens, they do their own teleprospecting and qualify them further. Once they've passed teleprospecting, then they're passed to sales, who again hopefully accepts it, and then on, qualified lead down to close one. In addition, there's a new channel that's now being tracked in the funnel where teleprospecting actually generates their own leads, irrespective of any marketing initiatives. There's also another channel where sales does the same thing. They're generating their own leads on their own without any support from marketing. So at the end of the day, here's what the new funnel model looks like. We're tracking marketing generated leads, telesales generated leads, and sales generated leads. We're also isolating and pinpointing the handoff points so that we can start to identify some SLAs. Now, the big benefit of doing this is that we can get very detailed on some actionable funnel metrics. Things like this. We can check pipeline by channel, by stage. So here we have outbound marketing. How many do we have at inquiry? how many do we have at automated qualified lead stage, on and on and on, and you see the conversions all the way across the board. And you can measure this across all the different channels: outbound, inbound, telesales direct, and sales direct. Very, very interesting. You can also check the conversion percentages at each stage by channel. In addition, you can check the number of days that were spent in each stage by channel. This allows some very interesting predictive analytics. You can check the cost of conversion from one stage to another, again, by channel. And as I said, obviously the ROI at the end of the day is what's important. So what's the ROI contributed by outbound versus inbound versus telesales direct versus sales direct? Again, you can get predictive in your analytics in that if you know how many days it takes to get from one stage to another, how much it costs you, and what the average revenue is, you can start to predict what your pipeline revenue looks like down the road. So, does SirusDecisions recommend you adopt a telemarketing team? Well, probably not, unless you really need it. But it's definitely a place to have a conversation. So keep these tips in mind if you're thinking about going forward and adopting a teleprospecting team. Obviously, if you already have one, the question's already answered. But think about adopting one if your normal lead scoring just isn't fully qualifying the lead adequately. Maybe you have an extremely stringent lead qualification criteria that lead scoring just can't manage automatically. Maybe BANT criteria is an essential part of your lead qualification. Maybe you have a high number of marketing MQLs that are just flat out rejected by sales. Or maybe your lead routing and assignment process are just too complicated for automation. And finally, maybe you need to block certain unwanted leads, let's say really stealth competitors, for example. Typically, teleprospecting is most often used for lead qualification, discovery, appointment setting. Some clients will use it as a kind of a go-between step when someone signs up online for a free trial. They'll sometimes get a call from a teleprospector, feigning to make sure that they had all their criteria met in terms of the free trial, but what they're really doing is just further qualifying them. In many companies, teleprospecting is actually owned by marketing. And the reason for that is that we usually need a very tight integration and definitely need good, strong visibility between our partnership, that is with marketing and telesales, and sending over qualified leads to sales. The challenge, of course, is that marketing just may not have the skills or the resources really required to effectively train and manage the team's performance and their goals. You probably don't need to adopt a teleprospecting team if you just don't have the staff to manage them, or if sales wants all MQLs, they have plenty of time to qualify them. Maybe sales doesn't have enough qualified leads, period. No reason to adopt teleprospecting. Maybe almost all of the automated MQLs are fully accepted by sales. And maybe your lead routing and assignments are already fully automated. Overall recommendations: be sure to fully document what an MQL really is for each product type. It's not going to be the same by product. It's probably not going to be the same by region. Make sure that each lead scoring program is aligned with those MQL definitions. And make sure that you enable some sort of fast track process for those leads that are ready for sales now. The worst thing you can do is hold leads back by forcing them into some automated process when they don't need it. Make sure you're inserting SLAs at each pass-through stage. This is typically one of the leaks in the funnel that is most often ignored. Finally, keep in mind that we want to keep the funnel focused on revenue performance and revenue predictions. This is tough, it's challenging, there's no question about it. You need to build the programs and the connections that are going to capture each lead stage's metrics. Sometimes that's better served in CRM, sometimes it's better served in marketing automation. But try and automate as much as you can. Really understand revenue attribution. This is going to be a big part of it because it's very typically the next question that people want to know. Okay, great. I now know what channel's performing. What assets are performing the best? To do that, take a look at the video from crowdstocrowds.com/ROMI.